The algorithm is crazy when you have a kid because it's like everybody has, everything's bad and everything's the right solution. Does that make sense? Like, you know, anything that you thought was, oh, this is definitely going to be a good thing, you have 50 videos saying, you don't want to do that anymore because then it'll cause X. And I'm like, so what? I just let this, what do I do with this child? Because I don't have any wisdom from any of y'all. Welcome back to the City Light Podcast. It is, what episode are we on at this point?
No idea.
Okay, we should probably track that.
We'll find out.
I'm back. You might not even known that I was gone, and that's okay. That's hurtful. But I had a baby.
Bienvenidos.
So Brennan has.
Do you speak Spanish?
No.
Portuguese, dude.
Português.
No.
Podemos fazer podcast em português se vocês querem.
Got nothing.
So basically what he said
I just
is
cussed
we're
y'all out
sitting
in Portuguese.
Sitting in the midst of a college baseball player. That's what you
That's really
former
good.
college
Yes,
Very
dude.
nice.
Bring that
Very
back.
nice. Very nice.
Forgot about that. Am I going? Am I just?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've been, the last 4 weeks have been a lot different for my life in a great way, in a positive way. Had a baby and a girl, Florence. She's been great.
Can we throw a picture in right now? We'll throw.
And it's been a joy. So that was one of the things that we were talking about. We were like, what do we want to talk about? Podcast. I feel like the last few weeks has been chaos in a good way. Also in some other ways too. But then we landed on, why don't we just talk a little bit about fatherhood?
Coming
Why don't we talk about being a dad, but also I'm sure there's some themes that God has for us in the midst of all of that. But I feel like in many ways, I have no idea what I'm doing, which is like really humbling.
Let me ask you this question.
So,
did you read a lot of like parenting books before?
Zero.
Okay.
I'm like the worst guy to advertise that type of content.
I feel like, no shade to people that read parenting books or that write parenting books, but I do feel like there's something about, you know, getting all of that information, but then when it's time to actually, like the baby is here, it's like either you forget all that information or it's like we just got to keep it alive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, every week it's wild to me how everything changes in such a short amount of time. You know, there's the cliches. I hate to say this because I'm like such an anti-cliche guy, but the cliches really do become true when you become a dad and a parent. And I don't know how it might feel if my, you know, first baby was a boy, but I think just having a girl, naturally there's some things instinctual and like parental that start to rise up in me when I see things in culture today, how my daughter is going to end up navigating certain things. And so it's a really bizarre feeling of, I love deeper than I have ever loved before, and yet I could also murder somebody if they were to ever threaten.
That's almost, that's almost word for word the text that you sent me.
Yeah.
Like the first
I think
week.
you asked me, like, how's it been? And I'm like, it's great. And I also
could
literally harm somebody if they were to ever bring harm to my family. So
what's some of the cliches?
I think that's one is like, you know, I've always heard, you know, your perspective changes in your relationship with God and how he views you once you're able to see, you know, your offspring and caring for them and know, like, I was a part of creating that. So it's definitely the cliche of I can understand a little bit more, not fully, but a little bit more how the Father views his creation and his children, and how in one vein he can love his creation so deeply and yet also want to make sure that they're striving for the right thing.
Yeah. That's
And
great,
so
man.
even something as silly as, like, you know, a baby doesn't know how to regulate its emotions yet. They only know how to cry. And I've seen over and over again that when babies cry, they don't actually know how to manipulate. So when they're crying, it's not to manipulate you. But in certain moments, it feels like manipulation because it's like, I just fed you. you just had your diaper
What
changed.
are
You should be
trying to
sleeping.
You're
make me do right
fine.
now?
Right. And so it's like, what is going on? But they just don't know that yet. And I think, and not to correlate everything to a spiritual, application, but I think in many ways too, I'm like, this is exactly how the Father wants, us to understand too, is that there's moments where, I've been provided for. My marriage is going in a way that I would have hoped for. The baby is here. It's healthy. Praise God. And yet I can still find myself, yeah, but God, what about this? Or what about this? And God's, reminding me over, hey, I've got you. See what's right in front of you and know that I'll care for it. So that's been a cliche that I think has been cool to see.
I think that we were talking about this too, that the life transitions, that's a huge life transition.
It's a massive one.
Yeah, huge. And I mean, like, you've had the same planning a church and also having a baby. And how finding contentment in seasons is like you're always looking forward.
Yeah.
You can always be looking forward.
Yeah.
And like, I'm in that too right now, and being engaged, like, that's not the same. But like, how do you just find contentment? How do you find contentment?
Yeah.
Well, before you hit that, I think it's applicable. What we were talking about yesterday is, and I think it applies to every kind of life transition, is, and it maybe just be me and you, Gabe, but I know, Ross, I think at least the three of us, I think our natural tendency when there's a life transition is to get frustrated that you're not adopting to the new fast enough. Like a baby being born. It's like, well, I just want to get to the normal, whatever the normal is, and you can get discouraged because you're not at that normal or whatever it is. And you said this, I think, was really, really insightful and helpful, that you just got to give yourself grace when you're going through a transition to figure it out. Not be so hard on yourself, because it is new. That's why it's called a transition. And I've been reminded of this. I forget where I picked it up, but when it comes to, people say parenting is hard, but life transitions are hard. But the line was, give yourself some grace because it's your first time being a dad. You don't quite have it figured out, or like, give yourself some grace. It's your first time being engaged, or first time being married, or wherever you are, having a job, or whatever it is. I think we're just really hard on ourselves when
we don't have it figured out.
Yeah, I think God has way more patience for us than we have for ourselves.
Yeah. No, another thing that I think has been in tandem with that is, we'll the baby will have a pretty consistent day, and then there's like time in the evening where there's just like fussiness, and she'll just cry, and we can't really do anything, and there's nothing, that we just have to let her cry, and that's just a part of their development as a new life on out of the womb and experiencing everything for the first time. But it was interesting because Lulu and I, we were laying in bed, and the baby was sleeping after, honestly, like, it felt like a good hour of just crying. But like, I call her, a baby raptor, because like there's the normal cry, and then there's a next level where it's just like a raptor calling. And we had an
She
hour
found her
of that.
upper register.
Oh yeah, she's a singer for sure. But it was, after she had gone through all of that, then there was just this, we were in our room, lights, it was evening, lights are out, and she's just passed out asleep. And it was a moment where I was like, I had to, remind myself, but also Lulu, I was like, what's funny is that she's going to wake up from this nap and this sleep, and she's not going to remember anything that she put us through. She's not going to remember a single moment of her wailing and going into this moment of just fussiness and unrest. And she's going to wake up with complete amnesia and just ready for the next thing.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of how so often, and again, I don't want to correlate every single season and every single experience I'm going through what I feel like God's teaching me, but I believe that there is truth in this, that we carry so many things from a previous season into the next. Mm-hmm. And so contentment, to what you were asking earlier, I think that is a part of contentment is oftentimes we are discontent because we're carrying baggage or an experience from something that God has already said you need to leave that behind in order to move forward. And so similarly, there's something there that I'm learning with her having an experience of chaos to waking up completely like just ready for the next and new, how I need to live my life too in my relationship. So,
or just the idea that God's called you to a new season, which requires new things of you. And there's some things that you were doing in a previous season that aren't going to be helpful or beneficial into your next season.
Yeah.
Like, I keep thinking about you, Ross, but I'm sure there's some things that you're already thinking about. Like, okay, this made sense for a college senior, how he lives his Monday through Saturday.
Yeah.
But that's not going to float in a marriage relationship.
Yeah.
How you just simple. How you grocery shop. Like what you spend money on.
Huh?
I said what you spend money on.
Yeah.
yeah.
We were talking about your wedding registry yesterday, and like I remember Corey used to make so much fun of me because she would always say that I lived like the simplest life before marriage, where like my bed would have one top sheet, just crappy comforter, and I just needed one pillow.
Yeah.
I still to this day just need one pillow. And now, after being married almost 8 years, now I get in a hotel. I get in a hotel bed. And I'm like, where are the rest of the comforters? Where's the throw blanket?
Where's the duvet?
I didn't have to put any throw pillows on the ground before I get to bed. Like what's happening? But in a serious sense, like when a season changes, that means you have to change too.
Yeah.
Or you're not going to be able to grow into the next. So.
Yeah. I went yesterday, had a financial planning meeting.
Exhibit A.
And that was like probably the first real eye-opening experience as a adult. Like college, like on paper, yes, I'm an adult.
Yeah.
But like the transition from, okay, I'm graduated from that and I'm like actually really here.
Yeah.
That was like, dang. Because like money to me has always been like what I have is what I have now. Like I'm living
Yep.
life. But like now it's, okay, I really do need to be thinking future forward. Like it's a whole different ballgame. And that could feel a little, I could get a little anxious about that because it's like, oh shoot, like this is in my hands now.
Yeah.
Respectfully, like,
Yeah.
I got to do what I can
there's
do
there's a role
to
I
be
play.
sustainable. So, yeah, that transition is like still happening right now.
You become keenly aware that what I do now and today doesn't just affect tomorrow.
Yeah.
It affects 5, 10, 15 years. I
Yeah.
mean, money's a great illustration
Yeah.
to that. But you don't think about that stuff
Yeah,
before.
I think you have. I mean, there's some innocence to being. I mean, all the way through college, I think, at least for me, to like the effect that, like what you're saying, it's not just about right now.
Yeah.
Like I think I've lived always just like I'm just hanging out. Like I'm just here. And now it's like, okay, like you said, how do I set myself up to be like an okay person for the rest of my life?
But to your point, and even in all this, because in some ways we're all in similar seasons, but in other ways we couldn't be more far from one another. But the thing that I've learned throughout these last 4 weeks of my life is like, oh my goodness, there is such a grace for each season of life that is new and that's fresh, that I believe God just completely extends to us, because very quickly and Lulu and I have talked about this a lot, in the same way that our gratitude and love for a child, but also in our relationships with God has grown, I also can see how quickly and how easy it would be for the enemy to get a foothold in my life. Because now there's more responsibility, there's more obligations, there's more people dependent on you, there's financial aspects that you need to think about, and I'm like, oh, I get it now. To not allow the enemy to get a foothold because it can be easily achieved.
There's you and I have talked about this for specifically the life transition of being engaged, but Caleb Gordon is a Christian rapper. I don't listen to Christian rap that often, but there's one line that he said, and I don't even know exactly word for word what it is, but the idea of it is that when you enter into a new season, because it's new, we need to rely on God, but because it's new and we don't know what the heck we're doing, the enemy has has so much more opportunity, like you're saying, to get that foothold.
Yeah. And
there's things we get blindsided by, and you said it to me before we got engaged, that there are going to be some things that are going to amplify. Like the temptation's going to get more, it's just going to be more.
Yeah.
And I guess I kind of brushed that off, but it was true.
Yep.
And so I guess this is I guess I'm saying, just be aware.
Yeah.
Going into that season or whatever season that you're going into, that if it's new, it's not new for the devil.
Well, chaos is a home field advantage for the enemy.
Yeah.
Like he thrives in that, and sometimes that's intentional. Like he wants to create chaos in your life, but sometimes that's just life. Like when a season changes and rhythms are shaken, and another human's added to the mix, or a life circumstance hits you out of nowhere that you didn't see coming or expect. It feels like chaos, and you're right. The enemy would love nothing more than for you to not only stay in chaos, but to let it destruct all of your reliance on God, even the simple things, the time that you spend with Him, like your prayer time and stuff like that. And we talk a lot about, I don't know if it's an American thing or if it's just a human thing, but I feel like Americans love kind of like goals, plans, structures, stuff like that. I think it's a God thing because God's a God of order, and He orders things that are in chaos. Yeah. And so I think the thing I'm learning with navigating new things is the quicker I can put things in order, then the less amount of time I'll have to spend in the pain of the tension. Like, okay, this season's different than what I thought or what I wanted, but it's the season that I'm in. How do I put things in order and create a plan so that I can make sure that I protect what needs to be protected and not just drift?
Or even if you know that you're about to enter into a new season, like we'll go back to my example from graduating to having a real job and a schedule that for the foreseeable future is pretty consistent. Like to sit down and to literally write in a notebook, okay, this is what my day is going to look like, and this is when time with God's going to be, so that when you enter into a new season and get out of old routines, you don't just fail at creating a new one and having some sort of, especially time with God built into that, because it's really easy. I'm sure for you too, there's very little schedule.
Yeah, don't ask me what my routine has been with God in the last few weeks.
Well, and you'll know this. How many people have you heard tell you to get Florence on a schedule?
Oh, yeah.
So many people.
The algorithm is crazy when you have a kid because it's everybody has, everything's bad and everything's the right solution. Does that make sense? Anything that you thought was, oh, this is definitely going to be a good thing, you have 50 videos saying, you don't want to do that anymore because then it'll cause X. And I'm like, so what? I just let this, what do I do with this child? Because I don't have any wisdom from any of y'all.
I think it's Josiah that became the king at 8 years old.
Yeah.
Maybe. I always thought it's funny. Like, how's he gonna lead it? At 8 years?
And he was a good king.
I mean, I got an 8-year-old. I ain't giving him nothing to lead. But just the idea. I think the principle is like, even though it's funny and it's true, but why does a child benefit from a schedule? It's because human beings need order, and we thrive in order and parameters and stuff like that. Corey so when it comes to parenting, Corey is so much better at being like the orderly parent, keeping things in motion, which you kind of got to be with 4 kids. But she always laughs at me because I'm more of the relaxed, like just keep us fed, alive, and moving, like we're good. But she's been out of pocket for the last 2 weeks with family stuff, and so the schedule, the order has fallen on my plate to try to maintain. And there's some things that I'm like, well, I'm just getting by, like, you know what I mean? But as she's come back, I have like a greater appreciation of like, oh yeah, it has a purpose. Yeah. And the purpose isn't to just have every box checked. It's because without order, there's chaos.
Yeah.
Which has been hilarious to navigate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Having a baby will every week feels like, okay, I've graduated. I feel like I got a good handle on this. Yeah. And then immediately the new week rolls in and I'm like, I'm a freshman. I'm a rookie.
Yeah.
I know nothing.
Yeah. You feel like you settle in. It's like, okay, we got at least a couple months, and then it switches on you.
But I will, and this, I think I told one of our young couples in our church, Luke and was it Anna Grace?
Yep.
Who they're going to get married in a month, 2 months?
August. What is that? 2 months?
So one of the things that I think, this is just a pet peeve. So maybe this is me venting, or maybe this is valuable to somebody, but fatherhood has genuinely been such a joy. And I can't tell you how many times every season that I would enter into, whether it was graduating high school, going to college, graduating, going into kind of the real world, big world, having a serious girlfriend, to then being engaged, to being married, every single season that I was stepping into, I think I heard more people telling me how intimidating, how hard, how scary, or how it only gets worse from here, narratives and verbiage and language. And I heard less of the joys that would actually come in the new season, though it would be hard. Yeah. And so this is my encouragement. If you're listening and you're in a season that is new, it's fresh. Yes, it's going to be hard, but you don't need me to hear that. You don't need to hear me say that to know that that's the case. Yeah. You're going to be okay. And that's something I told Luke and Anna Grace. I was like, hey, let me just encourage you. Marriage is at its worst when you first say I do. It should only get better. Yeah. It does not get worse because, the honeymoon phase gets over and then you're faced with reality. I'm like, it should get better. Yeah. And it's the same with having a baby. I'm like, it is such a grind at times, but it's also such a joy. Yeah. And I know it'll get better, but that's just something I just think about.
I wonder what the world would be like if less people spread that, like, it only gets worse narrative.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of like, not harmful, but I mean, it doesn't have to be that way.
Right. Cynicism is like poison.
Yeah.
It just eats every ounce of joy.
Yeah.
And everything. Because I don't know if this is an actual quote. I feel like it just came to me. So someone's either
Brennan Washington
said it or it was just an original Holy Spirit thought. All cynicism has some sort of a foundation of a truthful aspect. It just got distorted along the way.
Yeah.
Where, parenting's hard. It's really freaking hard.
But
yeah,
right.
It's also a tremendous joy. It's a gift. And when you look back, I mean, think about when, like, you were a kid. Making that sports team seemed like the hardest thing in the world. And then you got older, then you matured, you got some mileage in life. Now hard is relative.
Yeah.
To where you look back now and it might feel the same in the moment, but you look back and you're like, that wasn't actually hard.
Yeah.
This is hard.
Yeah.
And I think that just progresses as you go throughout life. It's like, yeah, marriage was hard when we had no kids. It's hard now. But now when I look back, that was easy compared to this. And, you know, you add kids to that, you add more jobs, you add different phases of life. I think hard is the constant.
Yep.
But it's do I hold it in a position of joy and gratitude, or am I cynical about it and buy into the same cyclical lie that I believe that, oh, it's not going to be hard in the next season, instead of just realizing, no, it's always going to be hard, but I have the power to determine the mentality I carry into it. So
yeah, I told Lulu one night when we were just in a grind hour together of baby was fussy, but I was like, because she asked me and she mentioned, she's like, hey, sorry, like, you know, I know you're trying to get back into swing of work and those types of things. And, you know, and I said, Lulu, it genuinely brings me such joy that this is my season of life, because I know so many people in their stories who would trade anything to have a fussy crying baby right now that we're having to take care of. Yeah. And that was the perspective switch, and has been as soon as I entered into this phase of life now. I'm like, God, I want to make sure that I view the things not with this naivety that everything's bliss, because I know it's not, but with the mindset of this is not a right. This is not a right for you to give me this.
Wow.
This is a gift that you've allowed me to have, and I want to steward it well, even when it's hard. Yeah. So,
well, that's perfect for the situation that Ava and I are in right now. Like, she is really struggling with contentment and being engaged. Like, she's just ready to go ahead and be married, and she's seeing it all over social media. Everybody and their mom, well, no, everybody and their fiance is getting married, but
that idiom broke down real quick.
It wasn't gonna work out. But yeah, that perspective, like, there are people that they would kill to just be in the situation that we have a great relationship. We're engaged. We're in the season together, and it's great. So why are we so, I guess we're grateful for it, but like, why do we prioritize the discontent in it instead of the thankfulness for the season that we are in? So
that's good.
That's good perspective. Yeah.
I had a mentor tell me, he said, my wife and I made the decision that we refuse to cry about now what we will laugh about later.
Oh,
that's wisdom.
I was like, man, you don't know where that hits.
Yeah.
But that hits everywhere because that is what we do. We have this escapist mentality of, Lord, just take me out of this season so I can get to the next better one. Yeah. And it's not supposed to be like that.
It's what is that? Andy Bernard quote from The Office.
What do you say?
I wish I knew the good old days. What is it?
You're on your own.
I wish I knew these were the good old days.
I know what you're referencing.
You know what I'm talking about?
We're watching The Office actually right now.
Bishop Andy?
Lulu's never seen it, but
let me look up.
We haven't gotten to that season with Andy yet. So,
have you not seen the show before?
I have, but Lulu has never. She's never watched.
I wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days before you actually left them. Yeah. Anyways,
that's maybe where we should.
Speaking of the good old days, though, Corey and I were talking last night. We are convinced that between the year 2000 and 2006 was in fact the good old days. We were watching like a 2004 show.
Oh, that's awesome.
And just, every piece of media gives away its decade or generation on the production or how they do certain stuff. And so we were watching it, and I was like, you could tell this is what it is based off of the way it's produced. And we were like, man, what we would do to go back to 2005.
We were
Simpler times.
I was talking with my mom and grandma and dad about the 80s the other day, and like how cool the 80s were, and like what a like genuine time that was to live, and like it didn't seem like everything was just out of order and crazy. And I'm rewatching Stranger Things right now, which like oversaturates the 80s.
Yeah.
Like it makes it just look like perfect.
Iconic.
But like I wish I could go back in time and live a week in the 80s.
What if you had to say, based off of your personality, what you love, if you were born in any other decade?
I used to say
What
the
decade?
50s.
Why the 50s?
I think it was just like a more simple time with enough like progression of technology, and like it wasn't like you're living with nothing.
Yeah.
It was enough to be what you needed,
Yeah.
but it wasn't too much.
A little post World War II
Post World War
camaraderie.
II, yeah.
Going. Okay.
The cars.
The cars,
were pretty
yeah.
sweet. But then recently, I have thought of more like 80s kind of. I think I would fit that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Gabe?
I think I love the 90s. If I was an adult in the 90s, to be able to experience, I think sports was like hitting just a new peak with, that era, at least in basketball world. But then I think even just culturally, like stylistically, I think we see it now. We're going back to a lot of
Yeah.
the
Oh, yeah.
90s outfits and styles and themes. I love that stuff. And then I even just think there was so much less stimulation like in the world, where you're like, there's exciting things because technology was like booming then in the 90s. You had this boom, but it wasn't cool enough to where that became your whole life.
Yeah.
So you had this kind of middle ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd probably be with you. I'd pick being born maybe 15 years earlier.
Yeah.
That way,
So
like,
what, the like 70s?
shut up. So yeah, if I could have been born in like probably late 70s, early 80s, and be like a teenager in the
Yeah.
90s, I feel like
Yeah.
that would be my jam. Minus, Y2K hysteria.
I need to watch a documentary because
On
the way that
Y2K?
people talk about
I don't
Y2K,
get it. Yeah.
I mean, my in-laws, like they've mentioned, like legit, the world stopped for a second.
Well,
People
nobody was
thought-
fully understanding the power of a computer.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
It was so, yeah.
yeah, it's like rabbit hole we're not going to go down, but similar amount of widespread knowledge with AI that there
We don't
was with the
quite understand it yet.
it's like this is new. It seems to be effective. What's the upside? What's the downside? I don't quite understand it. What do I make
It's
of it?
pretty legit and
Yeah.
realistic. Yeah.
Yeah, is this just gonna help me create workout plans and recipes, or can this take,
Take
over the world? Like, I don't really.
What's the in between? Yeah.
Yeah, what's who's monitoring this?
Yeah.
Is this regulated? Like,
I don't know how. This is something I mentioned to Lulu's grandma when they were here. I was like, I don't know how you guys survived with a newborn without ChatGPT. Because let me tell you, that has saved us on so many
what are you
things.
asking Chat GPT?
Oh, fill in the blank. We're asking everything when it comes to
Does a baby
sleep.
need food?
Right. Well, you think that's funny, but like I will tell
way
you,
you
there
asked
are
that.
so many resources and ways to, like, ChatGPT has walked my wife off of the ledge so many times when it comes to, do we need to be concerned about this or not?
yeah.
Because she can just look it up and see that, oh no, it can be normal for a 1-month-old to go 3 hours without eating and sleeping. And
Yeah.
meanwhile, on Instagram, you're seeing reels. Don't let them go over 2 hours or else. And I'm like,
Or else.
Chat's
So,
the great mediator there.
and then I'm also thinking, how did they just woke up and hoped the baby survived in the nursery? Like, we have cameras, baby monitors. Like, they just woke up and were like, I hope they're still alive.
Do you think that because of technology we can be too hands-on and
Well, they survived, so I guess, yeah.
Oh, I'm telling you, when we brought Ezra home, So Ezra was in the NICU for 10 days.
Yeah, that's a different beast.
And he was having problems, what they call desatting. So his oxygen level would drop randomly. So it's not a problem in the NICU because he's hooked up to a monitor. They can see it, it alerts them, and then the nurse can stimulate him or do whatever to kind of get it to come back. Well, remember, we were coming home, and we were like, well, what are we going to do when we're home? And we don't know if we need to intervene or anything like that. And so, the medical team was great and assured us and all these things. But OLED or something. It's basically like a sock you put on a newborn that gives you that reading. And I remember Corey and I had a real conversation where we're like, okay, where's the line between being hypervigilant and being fearful? Mm-hmm. Because we were like, do we trust God with Ezra's life? Absolutely. And people can say what they want. Maybe it's right, wrong, or indifferent. We were like, the medical team says they wouldn't let him go if there was an issue. We're not going to put that thing on him when we get home and spend every day of every hour watching that thing and freaking out and having anxiety when it dips. So,
well, and to your point, and Lulu's, she's worked bedside nursing for a few years before at a children's hospital, and she would talk about how parents would bring in their child because the monitor would say, something's wrong, and they'd come in and everything's fine, and it's just like I barred Lulu from being able to purchase that, which she agreed because she was like, it would just be fearful. And it was one of those things where I'm just like, we have too much. Yeah. Too much stuff.
I remember Corey went to the ER in pregnancy because her heart rate got elevated and she was freaking out. You know what the first question the ER doctor asked her when he saw her was, because Corey's like, the traditional, what brings you in today? And she kind of goes through the thing. The first question the doctor asked her was, have you been looking at your Apple Watch? And she was like, yeah, it told me my heart rate was, fill in the blank. And he's like, okay. And she's like, why'd you ask that? He's like, you would be shocked at how many people come to the ER talking about, tachycardia because they look down on their wrist and
something's
they
wrong.
panicked. So again, we're not saying that we're anti-tech or anything like. Hey, Apple Watch may save your life one day. So don't say Brennan said don't wear it. But to the point of, are we relying too much on the tech? I don't know. Stay tuned.
Well, when we're doing this podcast 5 years down the line, we talk about AI, or we're not even doing the podcast anymore. It's just all of us are AI, and it's like it looks like us, but it's actually just AI.
How ignorant are we going to feel in 5 years about what we know right now about AI?
You know what I was talking about? This was actually in the same conversation with my family about the 80s, but Back to the Future.
Uh-huh.
When you think about so there was the movie set in 1985. The episode or the movie they go to the future is 2015, and there's the differences but similarities between what they predicted. Yeah. They had us in flying cars, but we still communicated to other countries through faxes.
Wow.
So what is there going to be that in 10 years, we are overshooting something like crazy, but we're also underselling something like crazy too. AI might not get that out of hand. We might just be thinking that it's going to grow and be ridiculous, but then something else could happen, and it's like
we never saw it coming.
You're right.
Yeah, dude, that's a crazy thought.
Yeah.
Honestly.
My not hot take, but I think the biggest advancements we'll see in the medical field with AI. I think you'll begin seeing crazy surgeries done fully just computers, which they're already doing in some ways.
I saw this past week a Chinese surgeon did an operation, I think in Beijing, remotely.
No way.
Remotely.
See, there's a limit to
invasive surgery.
I'm not if I'm needing surgery, I'm not saying, yeah, that's cool. From your couch, you can do surgery on me. Okay.
See, it's do you value, this is maybe the question, do you value a larger percentage of error from a human, but knowing that they can not be solely analytical and by the book to be able to think on the fly because of the emotion? Or do you value, hey, this is a 99% rate, but if it needs to intervene or do something that is spontaneous, it won't know how to,
Yeah.
you know.
I would be. It would be a hard sell for me to think that some way they could factor into AI or any tech human intuition. Like I get technology is quote unquote intuitive, but I think there's just something on the inside of human beings that is able to able to feel something's off here.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I sound like a dinosaur thinking that way.
I don't think so.
Yeah, because who do you sue if things go wrong? You sue the robot? The company?
For sure.
He's protected. He's got law. He's got a lawyer.
Go to court and you got a robot
Got a
on the
lawyer.
other side.
The defense.
The lawyer is ChatGPT. Dang, you're cooked if you have a human.
Yeah. I'm not going through any proceedings
I use
against Chad.
ChatGPT for my defense. Wow.
That was.
We covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see the thumbnail and the title for this one.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. Probably have AI do that. Anyways, that's it for this one, I think.
Yeah. Give them a little glimpse of kind of where we're going. I mean, like, we got courses coming.
Yeah. So
Stuff like that.
Right now at our church, we're in a sermon series called Foundations, just about all the foundations of the Christian faith. Like the first few were the Bible, salvation, prayer, baptism, like all those different things that can be misconstrued and misunderstood and all that kind of stuff. So the sermons are, of course, going up on YouTube. And then we have courses that go along with those that Brennan is just walking through more in depth and more of a class style. Those are going live every Thursday right now. And then Saturdays we're doing podcasts, and we're hoping to bring in a lot more guests and get a lot of new perspectives beyond just what our church is, but also just other people's walks of life.
I'm not going to say what they are, but the next 2 episodes are going to be awesome.
Yeah. So just full transparency, we shoot like multiple podcasts at once, or like in the same day. And so our next guest is Ava, my fiance, and we're about to get into some deep that she doesn't have any idea what we're talking about.
Good.
So and neither do you. So come to the next
cliffhanger right here.
Come next week and see what.
Sorry, Ava.
Ava, we're about to bring her into some deep water.
Come on now.
Freak her out a little bit, I think. But that's all right. So that's a wrap on this episode. Like, subscribe, do all those cool things for us, and we'll see you next week.